Hi everybody, I'm Kevin Salinas, and today I will be informing and educating all of you on the constitutional rights within disaster policies. This presentation will cover the importance of constitutional rights during major disasters as well as the relevant amendments and the rights that they protect within disaster policy. These include the 1st, 2nd, 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendments. Also, I will examine how during Hurricane Katrina, all 5 of these amendments were violated. And lastly, I will talk about how the American Bar Association and Interagency Standing Committee has responded to these violations. To begin, constitutional rights are extremely important during a disaster because they provide several protections to private citizens while at the same time setting forth guidelines for governing the relationship between federal, state, and local governments. The first and most well-known amendment provides Americans with the freedom of speech, freedom of press, and freedom of religion. These rights are vital following a disaster because they provide a way for the population of a disaster-stricken area to communicate with the rest of the country. For that reason, these rights are crucial during the milling and keynoting processes. Disaster policymakers need to realize that even though following a disaster it might seem like a good idea to limit the freedom of the press, they cannot do that since that is a constitutional right. The Second Amendment is the right to bear arms. Disaster policymakers must recognize that oftentimes after a disaster there are numerous instances of violence and looting, and as a result citizens might feel like it is necessary to be armed to protect themselves, their families, and their belongings. Despite that unfortunate situation, responders are not allowed to seize the firearms of citizens. The Fifth Amendment guarantees that even after a major disaster, a citizen must be entitled to a due process of law. Additionally, the Fifth Amendment states that government cannot take away a person's private property for public use without compensation. So when large venues like the Superdome are used to distribute aid and gather victims, they must be paid back. The Sixth Amendment is the right to a speedy and public trial with an impartial jury. Following a disaster, there tends to be many instances of crime. Therefore, it is pivotal that the legal system continues to operate smoothly. Disaster policymakers must make sure that they have available judges, juries, and lawyers so that citizens suspected of a crime can be brought to trial quickly. The 14th Amendment provides citizens with equal protection of the law. This amendment certifies that when it comes to response efforts, no group shall receive special treatment. Instead, aid must be distributed equally among all the people. During Hurricane Katrina, all 5 of these amendments were violated. The First Amendment was violated when FEMA tried to restrict the press from taking and publishing pictures. The Second Amendment was violated when the police force seized over 1,000 guns after announcing that only law enforcement will be allowed to have guns. The Fifth and Sixth Amendments were violated because the whole court system was shut down. And finally, the 14th Amendment was violated because not all citizens received equal aid. In response to these violations, the American Bar Association printed the Rule of Law in Times of Major Disaster, which provides 12 principles that attempt to ensure that constitutional rights are not violated after a disaster, while the Interagency Standing Committee has created the operational guidelines on human rights and natural disaster to help with disaster relief. Thank you for listening to my presentation. I hope you all enjoyed it and learned a great deal from it.